Good evening, Singapore. And thank you for inviting me. It's my pleasure to be here. And personally, I'm not a person who stands in front of an audience and do this. But I would like to share my passion and the little knowledge I have about, especially the wildcats. Yeah, I would like to make it a two-way thing rather than me going on and on. So if you guys have any... Can you guys hear me at the back? Okay. Okay. So if you need to verify something or ask me anything, you can interrupt, no problem. First, I would like to find out if I know that there are two people at least here and one Sri Lankan there. You have been to Sri Lanka and a few people over there. How many of you have been to Sri Lanka? The majority. That's great. Okay. Because I'm trying to make this as interesting as possible and try to make it short. Alright, so Sri Lankan leopard, or leopards worldwide, are known as the ultimate cat. They're slightly different to the other big cats. And there is a reason for that, and while we keep going, I'll try to explain to you as to why they are known as the ultimate cat. So, talking about them, when I'm trying to introduce them, what makes leopards the ultimate cat? Then the part 2 will be challenges for leopards, especially in Sri Lanka. But worldwide there is an issue, and I'll see if I can touch on those parts. First, for those who are not that familiar with most of the big cats, these are the 5 major big cats. Everyone knows what lions are and where they live, mainly in Africa and in India. Then we have the tigers, mostly in India, China, and then Russia. And these are the jaguars that you find them in South America, Brazil, the Amazon. That's a snow leopard. They say snow leopard is not part of the leopard family, but they are more related to tigers. That's what the scientists say, but I still believe it's a leopard. And this is a Sri Lankan leopard. They all look alike. So since we are going to mainly talk about Sri Lanka, those who have been to Sri Lanka know where the airport is, that's Colombo. And Leopard is our largest national park. And the second being Yala. Then we have the Knuckles mountain range. There are several national parks. There's another clip that will show. In case you don't know where Sri Lanka is, Singapore is here. That's where we are. Since this is Singapore nature and wildlife, we do have a lot of bird life in Sri Lanka. And most of the birds are migrant birds. So there are over 400 species of birds that you can find in Sri Lanka, and we have 33 endemics. So those are the world bird migration routes. Most of the birds to Sri Lanka, they come from Northern Europe and places like Siberia and the Far East. A little bit about wildlife in Sri Lanka. We have about 208 reptile species, and out of which more than half is endemic. We have lots of mammals, 113 species, and again 22 endemic mammals that you are not going to see anywhere else. We do have sloth bears, we have the mongooses, we have marabou, we have 3 types of monkeys. And also Sri Lanka boasts of having one of the highest densities of leopards in the world. So in part 1, I would like to talk about what makes the leopard the ultimate cat. There are still people who are getting slightly confused between, especially these three cats. So there are some distinguished differences between a cheetah, a leopard, and a jaguar. If you look into the face itself, it's not that difficult to identify, and also the skin pattern, the rosettes, spots. But especially for somebody who is not familiar with the cats, they all look alike. So where do leopards live? They live in most parts of the world, if you look. Africa is like home. Then we do have the Arabian leopards that goes up to even places like Turkey and Israel. There are very few. Then of course we have in the Himalayas, Pakistan, India, Nepal, all of these things. Then Indochina, Russia, all of them. There are known 9 species of leopards in the world. Those 9 species are what the scientists have done studies and done research. But there's a 10th one that not many people know about. So actually those 2 are taken as the Persian one and the Anatolian, which is over here. These 2 species, they think it's one species, but now they are finding new things, but nobody has done a proper research about the 10th leopard species. So these are the known 9 different species of leopards. So we have the African one, then the Indian, the Javan, the Arabian, the Amur leopard, North Chinese, the Persian, Indo-Chinese, and the Sri Lankan. So the Sri Lankan leopard is a subspecies, and it is also known to be the largest leopard species in the world. Have you guys heard of the black leopard or the black panther? People call it various names, but at the end of the day, it is another leopard. So, just like you get albinos, it's a gene, melanism, that 1 out of a couple of hundreds could be born black. They look black, but if you really look close, it has the same spot patterns like a normal leopard. But these cats are very, very difficult to find and very difficult to spot or to see. Leopards are generally shy, but when they are darker, they are extremely shy. And they're born in the rainforest, mostly in the rainforest and dense forest. So not many people have access to getting into those areas.
Have you seen them? No.
I have seen 2 in Sri Lanka, but they were both dead. So we have an issue in Sri Lanka. I would later like to talk to you about that. So the Sri Lankan leopard, the scientific name is Panthera pardus scotia. It's a subspecies. So a male would go up to 80 kilos. That's a big muscle cat. And the females are slightly smaller. So a length of a leopard is almost 2 meters. They live up to 12 years. The offspring is 2 to 4 cubs. Gestation period is 3 months. And in Sri Lanka, the dominant male has a home range plus or minus 25 square kilometers. Because the country is small, we have a very large prey base in Sri Lanka, so they can survive. But they say in Africa or in some parts of India, their home range can go up to 450 square kilometers.
Yeah, that's Africans.
Exactly.
Like that.
And then the females generally have 5 to 10 square kilometers So if you are talking about a 25 square kilometer home range in Sri Lanka, within that there could be 3 to 5 roughly females. And for that dominant male, those females, the offspring, the food and water, everything belongs to him. He generally does not share it with any other leopard. And he would protect it with his life. So when you say the leopard lifespan is 12 years, when they reach about 4 years of age, they come into prime. So that's when they need to find their own home territory or to expand their home territory. So a male leopard might eventually go and challenge his father to get his kingdom and kick him out, or even a leopard confrontation can be really, really bloody. So they generally avoid these confrontations because either the weaker one gets killed or they are both strong enough to continue the battle, and they would both be so badly injured and they would eventually starve to death, because if they are not in prime condition, they cannot hunt. And our studies show like it's 1 out of 5 attempts that he would be successful in Sri Lanka. So in making a kill. So if he does not make a kill, then he would start getting weaker and weaker. So an injured leopard who is not in a condition to hunt, he would start scavenging here and there, but his body would get weaker and weaker, and eventually he would starve to death. So they know this, so they generally try to avoid these confrontations, but there are some conditions that they need to go into battle. The home ranges do overlap. Now these are some known home ranges in Yala. Actually there are the fourth home range which we have not marked because when they did this study in Yala, that was in 2002 to 2004. That time, as you know, there was a civil war going on. So there were certain areas that they did not have access. So in Sri Lanka, none of the leopards are tagged or collared. Up to date, no leopard has been ever tagged or collared. So all of these studies have been done with visual sightings. And of course, they have to be on the field for years to do this study, photographing each and every leopard, getting the GPS locations of all those sightings, and to identify the individuals, the cubs, their habitat, their prey base. All of that had to go into a database. So it was it's a very tiring way of doing a research. The easiest it would be to put a GPS tag and then sit at home and track them with a satellite. But we haven't come to that stage yet. So we at Leopard Safaris, we are not scientists and we don't do this. But what we do is we support the Leopard project and the Leopard Conservation Trust, because they are the people who are doing the research. So we collect data for them because we have the opportunity, and we are mostly on the field and we see the leopards, we photograph them, so we know their behavior, all of that, so we do support them. So those smaller ranges are from the females. So they do also have their conflicts, and now there is a very wide distribution of leopards in Sri Lanka. Now until this study was concluded, it's not concluded actually, the study is still going on, but these are all new findings after the Civil War, because for the past 30 years nobody knew anything about the north and east, whether there were leopards or what was happening to them or whatever. Since the war ended, the research team started moving, and then they've done a intense study about it, and we estimate there are roughly 750 to 900 leopards island-wide, plus or minus. So since we are boasting of Yala having one of the highest densities of leopards in the world. So there are almost 18 cats per 100 square kilometers. That's a very high density for leopards. So at an estimate of 37,000 square kilometers, which is roughly 50% of the island, has leopards. And out of that, if you see the green areas, those are the protected national parks. More than 60% of the leopards live outside the protected areas. So they are living amongst us. That makes him the ultimate cat. Because a lion, tiger, a cheetah or a jaguar cannot do that. People would detect them. But the leopard he knows how to survive in your back garden. So this is the common diet. We have the vibo, then we have samba deer, we have porcupine, we have several monkeys, peacock, that's the barking deer, spotted deer, and buffalo. Of course, he can eat from a little beetle or a frog up to a buffalo. They are opportunities hunters. So any opportunity for a quick snack, he won't say no. Luckily, we are not in the menu. So that's the prey biomass available for leopard in our area, because that's where most of the studies have gone into. So over 7 kilos per square kilometer. Identifying individual leopards. It's not easy as most people think. Of course, when we are doing this the research, it's very easy when they have some distinguished scars and marks or whatever. Otherwise, we have to totally depend on their spot patterns, because it's like your fingerprints. No leopard is the same. So they all have totally different spot patterns. Like here, around his eyes, then around here. Generally we do take from the flank as well, if you don't get a clear face picture. So that's a side view and that's a front view. So you need to look into those things when we are, if we were to find this same leopard again in another area. Now this is another cat. Now these are his spot markings, and this picture is from the previous cat. So people might think it is the same cat in the same water hole or the same area or the same tree, but they are totally different cats. So that's very important when you are doing sensors and doing research about them, to find out their habitat and where they move, all of that. So they have different lifestyles and habits, and their home range markings and social behavior. Here I have a few they were camera shy, so they were moving. A leopard lives a solitary life. The only time that you will see leopards together is generally mother with the cubs up to 2 years. A female would stay up to 2 years with the mother. A male anything between 1.5 years to 2 years. After 2 years, the mother does not tolerate the cubs. Up to 2 years, she would provide for them. After 2 years, she would kick them out. They have to leave, or she would kick them out.
They can't hear you on the back.
Can you come closer? Okay. So a male, after a male cub who stays with the mother up to 2 years, he has either left the mother or he has got kicked out. So the only time that you will see him after would be when there is a female ready to mate, during that mating ritual, which can go up to about a week sometimes. So that time you will see them together. So during that period, they would share the food, that also reluctantly. And so the only other time that you will see them is the mother with the cubs. Occasionally the father would come pay visit when he's passing by. But at that time, he would not share the meal with any one of them. So the father would allow his offspring to be in his home range. And even after 2 years, he would tolerate them up to an extent. And then he would kick them out. So those cats were, say, between 2 years to 4 years until they find their own home range. We call them the transit animals. They are always on the lookout. So when they are moving, when they are resting, or their behavior tells us that they can look big, but we know that this is not the resident male because he's always on the lookout. He's afraid that he doesn't know when the big guy is going to come and find him. So they do scent marking. It is spraying like any cat. And they do face rubbing. They also do scratching, plus they do rolling. Those are all marking their territories. Now, people who love cats, generally people who love big cats, their ultimate goal is to see leopards because they are the most difficult to find. People who have been to Africa or India might agree with me, because if you go to Africa, you can see lions, no problem at all. Then if you go to India, you will find tigers. But then to find leopards is not easy. The reason is, now in Africa, if you take in Africa, there are lions and hyenas. So they are the competitors. They are much stronger, and so because of that, the sightings are not that frequent. Mostly daytime sightings, because the leopard is nocturnal. So what he does is he's hiding during the day from the tiger, hyena, and the lion, and he comes out in the night. So in Sri Lanka, the leopard is the top predator. He is right on top of the food pyramid. So he has no competition. The only threat that he has in Sri Lanka is human. So the daytime sightings are more frequent. This particular video, I would consider myself as one of the luckiest. That for nearly 2 years, we were following a family of leopards, a mother with 4 cubs. I may have seen them first when they were like 2 months old, and the last time I saw them was when they were maybe 2 years old. So in between, I have seen like 1 or 2 cubs, and then another day, another one with the mother or something like that. Never 5 of them together. And we saw it twice in 3 days. And that was the last time we saw it. So I always call it hitting the jackpot. being in the right place at the right time. You can hear this camera clicking. Yeah, so that was the last time, and they obviously they parted. So we do see one individual here and there. So they are never together. If you did notice, it's very difficult to differentiate the mother from the cubs. They are almost the same size.
What is that one doing there?
It's taking a dump.
Taking a
She was too busy doing that while the others were walking around. That's also very rare to see. And they are also playful. That's a mother with her cub, a single cub.
How far are you away from the leopards?
I was driving the jeep, so I was about 20 meters away. So one morning, I found two leopard cubs, again about 1 year old. They were both sleeping on the road, and then suddenly this mongoose appeared. The mongoose won. They were too young and they didn't know what to do with it. Yeah. So this cat is elusive. Sometimes when you're driving, a leopard can be just on the side of the road. You can easily go past it. They are like a three-dimensional image. It is there, but if your eyes are not used to it, you can easily go past and you don't see it. They are also majestic. They love to be on rocks. And they like to sleep on the rocks, especially at night, because the rock retains heat. So the nights are cold. And they have a fantastic camouflage. You need to keep your distance from them. They don't like if you come too close to them. That's what happened to me. He just showed me where I should stay. They are also stealthy. And like any cat, they are lazy. So the entire leopard behavior or his day-to-day life depends on the stomach. How full or how empty. That decides the leopard behavior. So when he has had a good meal, on this day he had a buffalo kill about 2 trees below. So they generally move out away where they can see the carcass, but they stay away because they get really bugged and worried by flies and maggots who come into the carcass. So when they eat, they use their paws, and also there's a lot of blood and meat in their teeth. So all the flies come and start bugging them, so they can't rest. So they generally move away from it, but they need to keep their eyes on the carcass. They're also cute, if you can catch the moment. That's about a 3.5 to 4 month old cub. These photos were taken by a good friend. I'm sure most of you may have heard of Steve Winter. National Geographic photographer. Now, Steve took these photos in the suburbs of Mumbai by using his trap cameras. This is to show how they can live close to us and not be detected. There is a cat walking down Mumbai street, captured with a hand camera. Now, if you speak to people in Mumbai, for example, they will say, yes, people were attacked, people were killed, the dogs were taken, all of them. But have you seen a cat? No. They don't see them. So it's like a ghost. So this is what happens when they do come out. That's a domestic cow that was killed but too large to carry. That's a dog. So the part 2 are the challenges for the Sri Lankan leopard. That's the biggest challenge. Human. We still trophy hunting is still happening. It doesn't happen in Sri Lanka. And sadly, the leopard parts are used for this purpose. It's a big market. So since there's a massive market for Chinese medicine, they do duplicate. A few years ago, there was a big raid in Delhi. I'm sure most of you may have heard about that through news. And there were a couple of container loads of leopard parts and leopard skins that were ready to be shipped to China. So if they can't find tigers, then they pretend that these are tiger parts. Of course, the skins also catch a market. Then we have another issue that's mainly in the Middle East. Now, in the good old days, there were rich sheikhs, the rich Arabs, who used to have a cheetah in their villas. They would drive around with the cheetah with a diamond necklace in their Rolls Royce. But now, this is all about how humans are trying to show their power and their wealth. So there was a time where they would drive a Rolls Royce, and then now they would have a private jet to show off. But the cheetah was the ultimate. But now it has changed. Now it has come to the leopard. To have a leopard is you're much bigger than the guy who has the cheetah. So there are reasons to believe that some of these leopards are going from Sri Lanka. It's very easy because most of our national parks, now if you take Yala and Leopard, they are both bordering the ocean. Now Yala has about 90 kilometers of ocean. We also have accidental poaching. This is mainly in the villages, the farmers. They do traps. They put traps mostly for wild. And also if they want to have meat, then they would also put that trap for deer and porcupine. And you asking me about the black leopard, black panther. Somebody was asking me at the back. Yes, that's one of the black leopards that I saw that was caught to a snare. He was killed in the Singaraja rainforest. And this guy was shot by a buffalo farmer because he went to get his buffalo calf. So these are the snares that they use. Actually, it is not purposely put for leopards, but it is a trap for wild boar and deer. But the leopard takes that part and then he gets caught. That's 2015. These are the known cases of leopards. There are a lot of unknown. Sometimes the people don't inform because they are scared, because they are afraid of the consequences. of getting caught with the law and paying fines and all that. So they just hide the carcass. Poisoning is also an issue. It is somewhat under control now because about 15-20 years ago, most of the buffalo farmers in and around national parks, their cattle generally go into the park because they get free food and water and free company also. But they are known to come back home. So the farmers don't have proper facilities to keep those buffaloes. So it's like a walk-in supermarket for the leopards at night. So they would come and take whatever they want. So the poor farmer has no other way of protecting it. If he has a gun, he would shoot it. Otherwise, he would poison the leopard. So about 15 years ago, myself and a group of friends, we started to talk about what we can do. So a friend of mine, he came up with this idea, and then we had to start collecting some funds, and we started donating steel pens to these farmers so they could protect the buffaloes and cage them. So the leopard comes, but he can't take the buffaloes. So the problem was somewhat sorted. Plus, since I got into tourism and I'm running my camps now, I have also I'm trying to get the farmers involved in showing how important it is to protect the leopard, because that's why the tourists are coming. And we support them by purchasing their buffalo milk and the curd. So now I get information from the buffalo farmers about the leopard visiting his buffaloes and can't take them. This was last month, 12th of March, less than a month, in Yala. They were caught with meat while they were on the act. So people do eat leopard meat. They believe that it's a cure for, what do you call that? No, there's a illness. They come up with that word. So they think that this, when they eat leopard meat, they become Superman.
How are those people punished, or what can they expect?
The thing is that it's a very difficult subject, because these people are poaching. I believe that this guy didn't go into the jungle thinking that he needs to shoot a leopard today and eat a leopard. For a poacher, when he goes inside, what he sees is anything that he sees becomes, there's a price tag on it. So what he can make out of it. So he probably came across the leopard and he thought, okay, I can make so much money with this. I can sell the meat, I can sell the skin. So sadly in our country, the law is not that strict, because now this guy will go to jail if he doesn't pay a fine. Now that fine is not very heavy, but definitely he can't afford to pay this fine. So what happens is his friend or his brother or his father or son would go back into the park and kill something else to pay the fine. So it's a very united syndicate where you help me and I help you kind of thing. So we are fighting against this system. So hopefully things will change. So until that time comes, we can only try to control this and hope for the best. So the WWCT, Wilderness and Wildlife Conservation Trust, that's the only non-government organization headed by a Canadian and Sri Lankan husband and wife research team. They are the people who are heading the Leopard Project and the Leopard Conservation Trust. They do study about their habitat behavior, estimation of numbers, prey base, and also do the awareness programs for farmers, schools, villages, trying to educate them. Even the wildlife rangers are not trained. So we have to train them. I put the government, even they are clueless of what's going on. So we need to educate them as well. When we have started, the project has started the Leopard Watch. So what they do is, in all these conflict areas that they have had human-leopard conflicts, they are trying to make awareness, and they have appointed people in those villages. Where it's like the early response team. So if they do find the leopard roaming around a few times, they would inform the leopard project or the special team who would go and see what they can do with the wildlife. You know, try to get that cat away from that area before something happens. Or even if a leopard is killed for any reason, then again the Leopard Watch is the first action team to go and see. We do have a lot of accidents happening because there are a lot of highways coming up now, a lot of road networks that are going through or going close to the national parks. So the leopards are crossing, not only leopards, various wildlife is crossing the roads, and there are a lot of cats that have gone run over. So at Leopard Safaris, what we are doing is, in supporting the WWCD, is also creating awareness and education to the villages and farmers in areas that we are working, and collecting vital data for all our leopard sightings. Because I have a good team working for me, including my wife Cecil. So all our leopard findings for the past, I would say, 10 years, we have a system of handing that over to the database of the leopard project. For that, we need to identify each cat. We need to have photographic evidence, the GPS locations, the behavior, all of that, so on and so on. So that is donated to them. Then we also try to do our part in a responsible manner. Those who have been to Sri Lanka and those who have done safaris probably agree with me that most of the people do not, for them it's just a business, it's just another number. So they don't do things in a responsible way. So we want to be different to the rest. And we would love to always make awareness, educate and share our passion with like-minded people. What you can do, if anybody is interested, you can directly contact the WWCD. They need a lot of support because their research teams are tirelessly working. At the moment, they have started a new project in Whaté National Park, and they are also doing research in the hills, where if you know Cotton Plains or the World's End. Then they are also doing in Agrapatana and in the Bhagwantala Valley, bordering the Adams Bay area. They started their new research. And just to give you a hint, they have got permission for the first time by the government to probably to tag some cats in the future. But those things are under negotiations. So if that is granted, I believe that we would know more about these animals. So at the moment, what we know is only this. And some people are going on a major guessing game of these cats. So there are a lot of theories, but we just need to wait and see what they actually do, what we don't know about them. So like I told you, in Sri Lanka, if you take the food pyramid, the leopard is right on top. So it is endangered, there is a threat. Luckily, we do have somewhat of a steady population because of the protected areas. So if we lose the leopard, That's what's going to happen. You're going to have a total collapse of the entire system. Thank you for inviting me and thank you for listening. I hope that you learned a little bit more about the leopard, especially the Sri Lankan leopard.